You've probably been there. You have 10 minutes to kill, so you open Instagram or TikTok. You're just looking for a little distraction, a quick laugh, something to pass the time. You start scrolling. And the feed is perfect, a little too perfect. There's a clip engineered to make you angry, then one designed to make you laugh, then a photo of someone on a vacation you can't afford, looking happier than you felt all week. It's a precisely curated emotional roller coaster, and you didn't even have to buy a ticket. But then you look up at the clock. 25 minutes have vanished. And as you close the app, you're left with this strange, hollow feeling, a low hum of anxiety, a subtle sense that your own life is somehow lacking. You open the app to feel connected, but you log off feeling lonelier than before. That feeling isn't an accident, and it's not your fault. It's a feature, not a bug. The feed you were just scrolling through wasn't designed to make you happy. It was designed to do one thing, to hold you. And the psychological price of being held that way is turning out to be a lot higher than any of us realized.
Yeah, that feeling, that hollowness after you've been, scrolling away, that's really the heart of the problem, isn't it? It's the core ethical issue, the psychological challenge of this whole attention economy.
Right.
So today, we're really going to dive deep into how these digital platforms are built, their architecture, and crucially, look at some specific tools that are actually being developed right now, tools to help all of us sort of reclaim our minds and our time.
Okay, so let's start there. Section 1, the psychological cost of the attention economy. Because, like you said, before we can even think about building something better, we really have to get our heads around what the current digital world is, doing to us.
Exactly.
And the core conflict seems to be described as engagement versus intent.
Sounds a bit academic, maybe?
It might sound that way, but honestly, it's the most practical, everyday problem we face online. Think about how these platforms are designed.
Okay.
Your typical social media feed, it's not just showing you things in order, like chronologically. Not anymore. It's all run by these incredibly sophisticated predictive models. Predictive models.
Yeah.
Meaning they're guessing what I want.
They're guessing what will keep you. They analyze just enormous amounts of data about what you do, your behavior.
Like what I click on.
Clicks, yeah. But also likes, shares, comments, how long you watch a video, even how fast you scroll past something else. All of it. And the goal, the only goal, to maximize your engagement, keep you on the app for as long as possible.
And it works, right? I mean, in the moment, you just keep scrolling. It's effective.
Undeniably effective at holding attention. But then, the moment you close the app, that's when it hits you. You just spent, half an hour? Watching stuff that had absolutely nothing to do with why you even opened the app in the first place.
Yeah, that disconnect.
That's it, exactly. And this pulls in ideas from behavioral economics. You know Daniel Kahneman's work, System 1 and System 2 thinking.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
Fast and slow thinking.
That's the one. System 1 is your fast, automatic, intuitive brain. It reacts instantly to novelty, to threats, to quick emotional hits, like a shocking headline or a really cute cat video. The feed is perfectly tuned, like a musical instrument almost, to hit those System 1 buttons. It hooks you immediately.
So the platform is basically talking to the impulsive reactive part of our brain.
Precisely. Feeding it exactly what it craves in the moment. But then when you stop scrolling, when you disengage, System 2 wakes up.
The slower part.
Right. The deliberate, reflective part, the part that thinks about your long-term goals. System 2 is the part of you that wanted to say, check your friend's holiday photos or find that specific article you're looking for.
But System 1 got hijacked.
Completely hijacked by whatever content was best at grabbing clicks, shares, watch time, highly stimulating stuff, and the end result, that feeling of regret, that, what did I just do feeling. Because what you didn't line up with what you actually wanted to do, your deeper goals.
And you mentioned the platforms.
Yeah.
They kind of bake this in. They design it to listen only to System 1. They minimize our actual intentions.
Historically, yeah. They almost had to, if you look at it purely from a data standpoint, they optimize for what's called implicit feedback.
Implicit feedback? Meaning my actions, not my words.
Exactly. Think about everything you do without explicitly saying anything. The milliseconds you pause on a picture. The speed of your scroll, videos you watch all the way through versus ones you ditch after 3 seconds.
Okay.
That whole history, your digital breadcrumbs, it's massive. It's orders of magnitude more data than any explicit feedback you might give.
Like hitting a dislike button or filling out a survey saying, show me less of this.
Right. Those explicit signals are tiny compared to the fire hose of behavioral data, your clicks, your pauses. They reveal much more accurately what actually keeps you scrolling than your stated preferences do. The system learns from the anger that made you pause, not the recipe you told it you were searching for.
Wow. So that lack of real control, of agency,
Yeah.
it's not a mistake. It's baked into the system because behavior data is just so much richer for their models.
It's historically been the most efficient way to maximize engagement metrics. Maximize data volume first, respect user intent.
Maybe later.
Or not at all.
Okay, so let's talk about the fallout. The consequences of living in this constantly optimized environment. Because this relentless drive for engagement, it seems to create a really toxic online space sometimes. We hear about societal harm, but what does the research actually show is happening because of these feeds?
Yeah, the research paints a pretty clear picture. Content that sparks strong emotions, and often that means negative stuff, uncivil arguments, sensationalism, outrage. That kind of content gets favored. Why? Because it gets clicks, shares, comments, it maximizes interaction.
And the effect isn't trivial.
Not at all. It's widespread. We're seeing studies indicating that roughly 1 in 4 people around the world show signs of problematic or even addictive social media use.
1 in 4. That's huge.
It is. And this isn't just about, wasting a bit of time. It's linked to measurable psychological distress. And that distress is driven, at least in part, by the very architecture of these platforms.
And the big part of that distress seems to come from influencer culture. When this optimized content meets our tendency to compare ourselves to others, that sounds like a recipe for disaster, especially for younger people.
Oh, absolutely. The influencer paradox, as some call it, is, well, it's both fascinating and potentially quite destructive. Influencers are basically normal people, right? But they become these widely accessible role models.
Through very carefully managed content.
Exactly. Carefully curated, filtered, perfected content. It promotes these often wildly inflated ideals of what happiness looks like, what success is, physical perfection. The whole aesthetic is manicured. It's often fundamentally unrealistic, unattainable for most people, but it's presented as just normal life.
And when young people who are already trying to figure out who they are compare their own messy, real lives to this perfect-looking feed,
the psychological hit can be immediate. Constant comparison, we know this leads directly to feelings of inadequacy, anxiety, low self-esteem.
Is there data on that link?
Yeah, solid data. Studies show a positive correlation. The more frequently young people interact with influencers, the higher their reported levels of peer pressure and social comparison.
And it changes behavior, too, not just feeling.
Definitely. It drives behavior. One study found something like 70% of surveyed youth admitted they'd copied the looks or actions of influencers. Why? Specifically to try and fit in.
Wow.
So the platform isn't just a mirror reflecting society. It's actively shaping social norms, often in ways that dial up the pressure and anxiety.
That pressure. It makes me think about another layer here. These relationships we form, parasocial relationships or PSRs. Why do we end up feeling these genuine connections to people we only see on screen?
PSRs. Yeah, the concept's actually been around for ages. It was defined back in 1956 by Horton and Wohl. They called them one-sided relationships. Yeah, relationships that viewers form with media figures. Back then, it was movie stars, TV hosts, maybe even fictional characters. People who were distant, inaccessible. You watched them, but they didn't know you existed. It was purely observational.
But social media smashed that distance, didn't it? With DMs, live comments, replies.
Totally transformed it, fundamentally changed the dynamic. Now, researchers sometimes call it a 1.5-sided PSR.
1.5-sided.
Yeah, because while it's still basically one-sided, the influencer with millions of followers can't really know them all personally. The possibility of direct engagement changes everything.
Not chance. They might read your comment or even reply.
Exactly. That potential, even if it hardly ever happens, makes the relationship feel more intimate. It could be reciprocal. It blurs that line between the old school PSR with a movie star and, an actual friendship.
That shift from the untouchable celebrity to the sort of accessible micro-celebrity, that must make us more vulnerable somehow. Who gets drawn into these more intense digital relationships?
Well, there are some perhaps surprising findings here. It's not purely negative, this PSR thing. Some research suggests that people who report feeling lonelier might actually feel stronger intimacy and familiarity with these media figures.
Really? Why?
Well, if you're feeling socially isolated, these online figures can offer a kind of consistent companionship. They're always available when you check their feed. And it's connection without the messiness, the risk of real-world interactions.
So it can function as a sort of coping mechanism, a low-risk form of connection.
Precisely. And this effect seems amplified for people with lower self-esteem. For them, PSRs can actually be self-enhancing.
How so?
They often connect with figures who embody their ideal self, someone who seems confident or successful or charismatic in ways they wish they were. By following that person, consuming their content, feeling that connection, it can create a subjective feeling of moving closer to their own ideal self. It gives them a psychological boost that might be harder to get from, say, navigating tricky real-life social stuff.
It sounds like a perfectly engineered loop, almost.
Right.
The platform might make us feel inadequate through all that social comparison.
Right.
But then it offers this soothing, low-risk pseudo-connection through these 1.5-sided PSRs.
It's an incredibly effective system for holding our attention, isn't it? It taps into deep psychological needs and vulnerabilities, which makes the idea of just, putting the phone down feel really difficult, almost impossible sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why the simple solutions, like just setting a timer on your app usage, often don't work that well. We're not just fighting a distraction. We're fighting these algorithms that know our impulsive triggers, maybe better than we know them ourselves, and these psychological safety nets we build with PSRs.
So the real solution has to go deeper. It has to involve taking back some control over the content itself.
Exactly. Which brings us nicely to section 2, reclaiming control the intentional feed. Moving beyond just managing when we use these apps to actually shaping what we see when we're there.
Okay, the intentional feed. This sounds like a big shift.
It's a critical shift, yeah. For a long time, digital well-being efforts focused on, time controls. Apps that nag you or lock you out after a certain time.
Right, screen time limits.
Yeah, but that only treats the symptom, the amount of time spent. The idea of an intentional feed, like the Bonsai system that's been researched, gets to the root cause. The engagement-driven content optimization, it's about giving agency back to the user, letting you write the rules for your own feed algorithm.
So instead of the algorithm guessing what I want based on my random clicks, I actually tell it my goals explicitly.
That's the core idea.
But how does someone like me, who isn't a coder, actually control a complex algorithm? That sounds hard.
That's where the power of large language models, LMs, comes in. Bonsai uses them as a bridge. It helps move us away from the emergent feed, where the content just sort of bubbles up based on engagement.
To an intentional feed, where the content is governed by goals you actually state clearly.
Exactly. And Bonsai provides this framework. It's platform agnostic, meaning it could work on different platforms, and it has 4 main stages, and it makes the whole process transparent and editable.
Okay, walk me through those stages. Stage 1 is planning.
Planning, yeah. This is where you use natural language, just plain English. You tell the system what you want. For example, you might type in something like, I want a feed with mostly cute pet stuff. Dogs and cats are great. But no ads, please, and definitely no sad stories. Just wholesome things to cheer me up.
Okay, simple enough.
Then the language model takes that conversation request and translates it. It breaks it down into structured things, candidate sources like certain accounts or hashtags, and specific rules for what to include and what to exclude. The LM basically acts like your personal programmer, turning your vibe into actual parameters.
That natural language bit sounds key, makes it less intimidating.
Oh, hugely. It dramatically lowers the barrier to entry. So once your intent is structured, you move to stage 2, sourcing.
Sourcing, getting the raw material.
Exactly. Fetching posts from all the potential places, maybe the platform's main feed, specific lists you follow, certain accounts, hashtags, search results, all based on the criteria the LM figured out in stage 1.
And then the important part, filtering. Stage 3, curating. This is where you block the bad stuff.
Absolutely. Curating is where the serious filtering happens. Another LM scores all those posts it gathered against your explicit preferences, especially your exclusions.
Like the no sad stories rule.
Precisely. If you explicitly said, never show me stories about animal abuse, injury, or death, the LM identifies posts that violate that rule, even if they technically feature cute pets. This lets you surgically remove the kind of upsetting or toxic content that the standard engagement algorithm might actually boost because it gets a strong reaction.
That's a massive difference from current systems. Usually, if you dislike something, maybe you see slightly less of it, but it doesn't just vanish, especially if it's getting lots of clicks.
Exactly. It's about hard rules based on your intent, not soft nudges based on inferred preferences. And then finally, stage 4 is ranking.
Okay, so once you have the good posts, how are they ordered? It's not just about what's most popular anymore.
Right, because the goal isn't just pure engagement now. The posts get ordered based on a mix of criteria you define.
How do you mix them? Like, how important is it that a post is relevant versus how new it is or how popular it is with others?
Bonsai uses a method, it's called weighted board account rank aggregation. Sounds technical, but don't worry about the name.
Okay.
It's basically just a fair, kind of democratic way to combine different priorities into a single ranked list. You, the user, set the weights. You might say, okay, I want relevancy to count for 40%, popularity maybe 25%, and recency 35%.
Ah, so I can decide. If I want the newest stuff, I crank up recency. If I want deep cuts on a niche topic, I crank up relevancy.
Exactly. It lets you explicitly move away from just chasing viral trends. Your content aligns with your intent first, even if it's not the most popular thing out there.
The main goals seem really clear then. Intent. Fidelity, what you see, matches what you asked for. Controllability, you can tweak it without needing a PhD. And procedural transparency, you actually understand why you're seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah, that transparency piece is huge. It's a shift away from these opaque black box systems where the platform might give you a vague reason after showing you something, like because you engaged with similar content.
Right.
With an intentional feed, the clarity comes because you wrote the rules. You know why stuff is there or isn't there because you authored the process.
This sounds amazing, especially for people who feel overwhelmed by their current feeds. But how did actual users react? Did they find it easy to set up?
Yeah.
Maybe more importantly, did they stick with it? Because more control usually means more effort. Right.
That is the absolute core tension, the effort trade-off. The really good news is that the natural language input made the initial setup much, much easier than older methods.
Okay, that's promising.
Yeah, one user in the study, someone with prior experience trying to customize feeds, said they got a super good, almost final product in just 5 minutes using Bonsai. They figured the same thing would have taken hours with older, more manual, rule-based systems.
5 minutes versus hours. That's a big difference. So the initial hurdle is lower. And did they get the benefits they were hoping for? More agency.
They really did. People successfully used it to filter out specific things they found toxic or just irrelevant. Like academics were able to screen out political rants from professional contacts while still seeing their research papers.
Nice.
And they also found genuinely new, interesting stuff, things their normal feed wouldn't have shown them. One person said their intentional feed was the most interesting my feed has been in a while.
And I imagine there's a mental benefit too, not having to constantly worry about training the algorithm with every single click.
Huge. That was liberating for many. They mentioned feeling freed from this cognitive load, this background anxiety that every like or comment was teaching the opaque algorithm something they didn't want it to learn.
Yeah. Right. Felt they could just interact again. Like a post because they liked it as a social expression, not as some calculated move to manipulate their future feed. It brought back a sense of spontaneity, of authentic interaction.
Okay, but I have to push back a bit on that effort trade-off. Setting it up might be easier, but if I have to keep fiddling with it, tweaking the rules, adding new accounts, won't most people just eventually drift back to the default feed? The easy option.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the perennial challenge.
Yeah.
Intentional feeds do require more effort, not just to build initially, but crucially, to maintain over time as your interests change or new sources emerge.
And people found that effortful.
They did.
Yeah.
Even with the LM helping translate, users found the process of really thinking through and articulating their preferences clearly. Well, it took mental energy, cognitive effort. And while some users were really into it, willing to put in the work, like manually adding specific accounts to sharpen the feed dramatically, as one put it, others kind of hit a plateau.
They got it to a good enough point and just stopped tuning. Exactly that. Once the feed wasn't actively horrible, once it didn't have deeply upsetting content or just tons of irrelevant junk, they were like, okay, this is fine. The extra mental effort needed to keep tweaking, to chase perfection, started to outweigh the perceived benefit.
Makes sense.
One participant summed it up perfectly. They said, it's a hard trade-off because time is both what I gain, but also what I would need to put in to make it better.
So it really highlights this fundamental choice we face. The default, emergent feed, offers convenience, maybe novelty, but at the cost of your control, your intention. The intentional feed gives you agency, alignment with your goals, but it demands your effort, your attention to maintain it. It's the individual path, maybe.
It's definitely the individual path to taking back control within the existing structures, which naturally leads us to think about the other approach. Not just putting a better filter on the current platforms, but maybe fundamentally redesigning the platforms themselves, changing the architecture.
Okay, so that brings us to section 3. designing for psychological safety and authentic community. And this introduces a concept I'm hearing more about, Web 4. What is that exactly? Is it just Web 3 with a new number?
Not exactly. Web 4 isn't just about the underlying technology like blockchain, though that can be part of it. It's more of a philosophical realignment, a vision for the internet's next phase.
Okay.
The core idea is to shift power away from these giant centralized attention monopolies, the Metas, the TikToks of the world, and move towards smaller, decentralized, community-focused microsocial networks.
Microsocial networks. Like smaller platforms.
Yeah, the vision is less about brokering everyone's attention in one massive marketplace and more about cultivating spaces built around shared values, specific interests, common goals.
What are the key principles behind this Web 4 idea then? What makes it different architecturally?
There are generally 3 pillars people talk about. First is decentralization. The network itself is structured differently, distributed, not controlled by one company. This is huge because it changes who controls user data, who sets the rules.
Gives users more power over their own stuff.
Exactly. Second is democratization. Users aren't just eyeballs consuming content. They actually have a say in how the platform is run. Real participation in governance, setting policies, moderation rules, maybe even how the platform evolves.
Okay, so more user control, more user say. And the third?
The third is that community focus. The explicit design goal is to empower these smaller, more specific networks. Groups formed around shared interests, values, identities, goals, not just a giant free-for-all.
So the dream is kind of like bringing back the vibe of the early internet, like the old forums or microblogging scenes, but with better tech. Replace the infinite scroll global town square with lots of focused digital neighborhoods.
That's a great way to put it, but with a really important ethical foundation built in from the start. Psychological safety.
Psychological safety. We hear that term in workplaces. What does it mean online?
Yeah, it goes beyond just the basics of blocking harassment or hate speech, which are obviously critical. That's like harm mitigation. Psychological safety online is about creating an environment where you feel safe enough to take interpersonal risks.
Risks like what?
Like asking a question you worry might sound dumb, or sharing an early stage idea and asking for honest feedback, or admitting you don't know something, or even disagreeing respectfully. Things that require a degree of vulnerability. Feeling safe enough to do that without this crippling fear of being embarrassed, shamed, or rejected by the group.
That sounds really different from a lot of online spaces now. And the research we have actually gives us some clues about how to build that, right?
Yeah.
Looking specifically at communities for, say, entrepreneurs who might be marginalized or starting with fewer resources.
Yes, exactly. Research looking at these kinds of focused communities has identified 4 really critical factors that seem to be essential for fostering that kind of safety.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is shared identity. And this is nuanced. Just being members of the same platform wasn't enough. Even sharing one broad identity like entrepreneur wasn't quite enough.
So what worked?
Safety felt strongest when people shared multiple identities, often intersecting ones, identities related to their goals or their roles. For example, identifying as both an aspiring entrepreneur and also a parent, or maybe based on a specific industry and geographic location. When members saw these multiple common threads, shared values, yes, but also similar constraints, similar day-to-day realities, similar specific goals, their willingness to be vulnerable to ask for help went way up.
So it's about that intersectionality, recognizing shared context, not just a broad label. That's super interesting. What's number 2?
Number 2 is interpersonal trust. No surprise there, maybe, but here's the kicker, especially for purely online communities.
What's the catch?
The trust needed for people to feel safe, seeking really honest feedback or sharing deep vulnerabilities, that trust was primarily built and sustained through offline interactions, or at least hybrid models online platform, plus some kind of in-person meeting.
Wow. So people were hesitant to really open up to others they only knew online.
Highly hesitant, yeah. The studies found people felt much safer seeking meaningful advice or support from cohort members they had actually met, people they knew in real life.
That feels like a huge challenge for building purely digital safe spaces. It suggests that deep trust might need some kind of real-world anchor? Human nature, maybe?
The data certainly points that way. The communities that work best often blended the online platform with regular face-to-face meetups or events. One participant explicitly said how important seeing people, feeling people, getting to know them in person was.
So platform designers aiming for deep safety need to think about facilitating that blend, not just keeping it all online.
It seems crucial, yes. If you want people to take those high-stakes interpersonal risks, You probably need to build in opportunities for that offline trust-building contact.
Okay, so shared identity, interpersonal trust, often hybrid. What's third?
Third is perceived expertise. People sought advice, naturally, from others whose skills and knowledge they actually trusted. And again, this often linked back to people they knew well, often from their offline interactions or established cohorts.
Makes sense. You ask for help from people you think know the answer. But how does a platform help with that, especially if trust is built offline?
This is a key design opportunity. Platforms need to make expertise visible and accessible within the digital space. Don't just rely on generic profiles. Use things like conversational prompts during onboarding or profile setup.
Like asking specific questions.
Yeah, questions like, what are you confident you can help others with on this platform? And maybe, what specific things are you hoping to learn more about here? This helps articulate skills clearly and lowers the barrier for someone else to say, oh, you know about X, can I ask you something? It facilitates that digital exchange of expertise.
Got it. So you structure the platform to surface competence, not just assume people will figure it out. Okay, and the last factor. You said it was structural.
Yes. The fourth is group norms of shared accountability. Having some structure around peer support was essential for keeping momentum.
What kind of structure?
Things like regular cohort check-ins, meetings where members explicitly updated each other on their goals, shared progress, and gave received feedback. This kind of peer-driven accountability, feeling responsible to each other, not just reporting up to a moderator or leader, was really powerful. It fostered both progress and trust.
And groups without that structure didn't fare as well.
Right. Groups where communication was infrequent, unstructured, just sort of ad hoc, they were quickly seen as unsupportive. That feeling of needing to show up for your peers, knowing they'd be showing up for you, that made the effort feel worthwhile and built collective momentum.
Okay, so pulling it all together, shared intersectional identity, interpersonal trust, ideally with an offline component, clearly perceived expertise, and strong norms of shared accountability. That feels like a powerful blueprint for designing these safer, community-focused platforms. What are some concrete design strategies platforms could use based on this?
Well, first, really frame interaction differently, not just as consuming content, but as contributing value. Use those conversational prompts we talked about, encouraging people to share updates, even small ones, like share small steps toward a big dream. This reframes vulnerability and asking for help as positive contributions, not weaknesses.
Normalize the struggle and the seeking of resources.
Exactly. And second, embrace hybrid models. Don't just build online features. Actively design ways to facilitate that blend of online interaction with offline trust building. Maybe integrated event planning tools or features that encourage local meetups.
Acknowledge the importance of real-world connection.
Yes. And third, design the identity part carefully. Allow for and even encourage people to express those complex intersectional identities. Don't just have a tag for entrepreneur. Allow for mother entrepreneurs or first-gen founders in biotech or whatever is relevant to that specific community.
So people can find their specific tribe within the group.
Precisely. It helps members quickly spot those crucial commonalities and shared constraints, which, as we saw, makes them feel psychologically safer to engage, to ask for support, to take those risks. It's really about shifting from an architecture driven purely by attention metrics to one driven by shared identity and trust.
Okay, so looking back at everything we've discussed, it feels like there are these two potential paths forward emerging for a healthier digital life.
Yeah, I think that's right. They're distinct, but maybe complementary. On one side, you've got the individual path, the path of intentionality.
Like the bonsai system.
Exactly. Giving you, the individual user, the power and the tools to author your own algorithm. Transparent tools to align what you see online with your actual reflective system 2 goals, instead of just being driven by your reactive system 1 impulses.
Taking control within the existing systems. And the other path.
The other is more architectural. It's the path of community. It's about seeking out or maybe even helping to build these different kinds of online spaces, the decentralized Web4 style networks.
Where the whole design philosophy is different from the ground up.
Right. Spaces where the entire network isn't optimized for extracting your attention, but is explicitly designed to cultivate psychological safety.
Right.
Where things like trust and shared identity and peer accountability become the main measures of success, not just engagement numbers.
What's really striking about both approaches, whether it's the intentional feed or the community architecture, is how much they shift the power back to the user.
It's a dramatic power shift, isn't it? Both approaches fundamentally acknowledge that the current system, the attention economy model, is kind of broken by design, at least from a well-being perspective. But they offer concrete ways forward that empower you, either through giving you fine-grained control over the mechanics of your feed, or through giving you a real stake, real participation in how a community-focused platform is governed and operates.
It really reframes the whole relationship. The current digital world fundamentally sees your attention as a resource, a commodity to be mined, extracted, and sold, using algorithms precision engineered to hold you captive, often until you feel, well, hollowed out.
Yeah.
But the next stage, maybe the promise of Web 4, or tools like intentional feeds. It seems to be about equipping you, the user, with sophisticated tools of your own. Tools to decide, consciously and deliberately, what you want your limited, valuable attention to actually be used for. It's a profound shift from just being the product that gets consumed to becoming the architect of your own digital experience, your own online construction.